Just doing a little crampon maintenance. If you don't clean these, they start to rust. It's kind of obvious they're steel. They're coated in like this black paint, which helps, but you can see surface rust here. And the action to fit these crampons to your boot, you basically lift up on this spring mechanism here, and then they kind of expand out. Anyway, on my last climb, this was kind of binding up a little bit, and so whenever I went to collapse them down, when I took them off to stow them away, they were binding up. So I'm gonna clean them up and I'm gonna sharpen the spikes. The spikes are in pretty good condition, but I think there's a little bit of rounding on the tips, and yeah, I want them to be as sharp as can be. When you sharpen them, you don't sharpen them like this on the flat, on the edge here, so you don't weaken the steel, because you want the thickness of the steel so it doesn't snap, because they're kind of under a lot of pressure, especially if these front spikes, if you're towing in to snow or ice, I mean, that's holding a lot of weight, basically all of your body weight. So I'm going to take these apart. I'm already done with these, so you can kind of see like a difference. I cleaned up the rust, so there's no rust. I used some WD-40, but I'll disassemble all of this. And these spikes are like really sharp now. They already cut me, but you can see I just hit the very tips of them. I worked on it a little bit with a file, but it wasn't the most efficient way. So I basically grabbed my Dremel, and it has this little, I don't know what you call this, sandpaper type mechanism. So I hit up the surface rust with this. I was using this circular file for the smaller areas, but it's not the most efficient, so this works pretty well. Anyway, so disassembly on these is pretty easy, pretty intuitive. You have to take off this like snow binding plate. It helps prevent snow from balling up on the bottom of your boot. So there's 2 screws here, and then there's a screw right there to come out. And then you just kind of pry it out, because it's kind of clipped in here with tabs. So you pry this one out and you pry this one out. But actually, before I take off these plates, I'm going to take off this toe clamp. And this is just kind of spring loaded in here, so there's a pretty decent amount of tension. I'll just kind of pry it off of there with this bar, and you can see that it's already bent my file, but I'm sure there's a better tool for that. But you just kind of pry it off of there. All right, so I got the toe binding off, and the 2 anti-snowballing plates are off. Now I'll disconnect the front portion from the rear and then clean it up. You can see there's a surface rust and stuff on here. Just got to be careful, these spikes are kind of sharp. I've already poked myself, as I've said, so anyway. All right, this one is cleaned up with the wire brush. You can see the rust is clean. I had already hit these tips with the file, so there wasn't that much rust to clean up on them. But yeah, I just sprayed it down with WD-40, wiped off the dirt, and then wire brush the rust off. You have to move this little arm around to get all of the areas under here. I tried my best, but there's, I guess, a little bit more left. Anyway, so I'm going to wipe this off some more and then just kind of hit these tips with the Dremel. All right, turn it off. All right, so that's it for the sharpening. You can see I just barely touched the tips. Just the tip. On these spikes, you kind of have to be mindful of like the curve of the spike. You want to maintain that curvature, you know, when you sharpen. I'm sure most people would say, oh, you should do this with a file, but hey, you got to make do with the tools you have, and I don't have a flat file, and that little circular file is garbage when it comes to this, so they're sharp. And that's it for the rear spikes. So just need to wipe these down and get this like metal flake off, and then put them back together, and I'm done. And that is the front half on the right side, complete and reassembled. And that's the rear assembled. Basically just one screw, and these little plates just kind of clip in. There's like little plastic tabs that get seated. So 2 up front, and then you have 2 in the back. All right, just to compare, these are brand new, and these have maybe 25 to, yeah, probably about 25 hours on them. Hard, 25, you know, hard on the glacier hours. I mean, I guess if you're wearing crampons, it's not gonna be easy, but just sharpen them just a little bit. And this paint or powder coat, it's probably paint, you know, obviously wears off pretty quickly. They come relatively sharp, but these points kind of will get dull and round over a little bit, so that's basically all I was doing, was hitting that with a Dremel and knocking it off so I can have a sharp point again. Anyway, that's that. That's how you clean and maintain crampons. One final pro tip, make sure whenever you do these kind of jobs, you use your wife's fancy bathroom hand towels.